Hello and welcome everyone to Teaching Empathy, Ways to Foster Social Emotional Learning. And Tracy Adkins is going to be our presenter today. She has done several presentations with Social Studies Services, and we're so excited to have her again today. And as you can see in the bio on the side, that she has been teaching now for 19 years. So she's got me beat by 2 at a school in northern Alabama in Madison, Horizon Elementary. She's taught second grade. So we're so excited to have her, and we're so excited to learn more about teaching the whole child. And Tracy is definitely an expert on this. So I do want to give you a couple things on the webinar. If you have any questions or comments, I will monitor the chat and let Tracy know so that she can continue with her presentation. And at the end, there will be a short survey. So if you would like to, please complete that for us at the end so we can always keep growing and getting better. But we're so excited. I'm not going to take any more time. I want to get into this webinar with Tracy. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Tracy.
Okay, and I'm so excited about being here today. As Melissa mentioned, I am a second grade teacher. I have also taught pre-K, I've taught kindergarten, I've taught ESL in Texas. I've taught third grade, which was actually a looping year where I moved up with my second graders to third grade. And I've taught Title I, where I kind of did kindergarten through sixth grade. So I do have a wide variety of ages that I feel like I have experience with. I will tell you that my love, though, is the younger. I especially love kindergarten, first and second grade. Second grade seems to kind of be my little niche. It's where they still kind of love all the things that kindergartners love, but they can do so much by themselves. So it's a wonderful world to be in, and it's great. So I'm going to go ahead and move on with the presentation. This is Teaching Empathy, Ways to Foster Socio-Emotional Learning. And you'll see here the next thing I have is just what is empathy. Webster defines empathy as the action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experience of another of either the past or present without having the feelings, thoughts, and experiences fully communicated in an objectively explicit manner. In kid terms, it's the way I like to explain it to my kids is empathy is being able to understand and care about how someone is feeling. And this is definitely a life skill that every child needs to know. It has to be modeled by you. You, the teacher, are probably the most important model of this in your kids' lives, the ones that you have presently, the ones that maybe still come and see you and say hi to you, and it's very important for them to know. So how do I nurture empathy in my classroom? And I just stated that you are the most important model of this inside your classroom. I like to think of it as how do I make empathy grow in my classroom? You have to model it on a daily, all the time basis. You are your student's best example of empathy. So it's important that we take time, which sometimes we so get in, that spot where we just have to get everything done and we have to move on and we have so much put upon us on a daily basis that we feel like sometimes we can't stop for those little important moments. But just showing your kids that you can sympathize and sometimes just talking it out with them, especially with the younger students, they sometimes maybe don't understand why something's happening or they don't understand why, they should feel sad for someone. So I take time in my day that if I feel like that it's important, we stop what we're doing and we talk it out. We speak it out loud. This year in my classroom, it's one of those years where I kind of have some different things going on, and I happen to have 3 different kids within my classroom that are being raised by their grandparents, and all 3 of them do not have their moms in their lives. And so I quickly realized after Meet the Teacher that I needed to change some things within my room, especially the way I was speaking. And a lot of times I have found that I say parents, and I know that for my little second graders, when they hear that word, they're thinking mom and dad. And so this year I've changed to just saying families. And I make sure that if I'm saying families, then I'm saying, oh, this is grandma, or this is grandpa, or this is aunt, uncle, mom, dad. And so I'm really trying to be, you know, noticing that within myself and making sure that I'm speaking the word families instead of just mom and dad or parents because some in my classroom do not have their mothers out of reasons that they just don't understand and it makes them really sad. So um, it's very important to model that empathy within your classroom. Model it for your parents too, your families that are in your classroom, and let them know what you're doing. They will support you and they will sympathize with what's going on and they will also respect you for what you're doing. So I think it's really important also that we say we look in and explore what is it social emotional learning because empathy really goes along with social emotional learning. According to the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, which is abbreviated by CASEL, social and emotional learning is the process through which children and adults understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. I think these are all things that we would all agree make a whole child. It's what we want to strive for the children that we're teaching today to be when they are in middle school, when they're in high school, when they leave and become a part of the adult world. We want them having these skills. So, why do we need social emotional learning? For myself, it is very simple. I truly believe that the future of the world is in my classroom today. And I believe that every day I have the opportunity to make a difference. It might be a difference that no one sees for 10 years down the road. It may be a difference that I never see in my lifetime. But every day I have children in my classroom that need something. I believe that a child's social and emotional needs are more important than anything that I can teach them. I want my students to know how to feel good about themselves. I want them to know how to control their emotions, even when they are not understanding what's going on inside of them, how to listen to others with their whole heart. I want to model the way I want to be treated, and I love to speak this to my kids. I believe that every child on this earth was made with something great to do and that they will leave a legacy. My students repeat this on a daily basis. They repeat, I was made to do something great and I will leave a legacy. I teach my students that a legacy is just the footprints that we are leaving behind. And we make the choice whether our footprints will be positive or negative. They really seem to understand the footprints. As they're walking, we have stepped before, like in chalk, so that they just see that they leave something behind when they're walking. And every one of us is leaving some sort of a footprint. So a lot of times I might just say to my kids, if I see that they're doing something that I really would prefer them not doing, I might just say, what kind of footprints is that leaving behind? What are you leaving for others when you're doing that? So what can I do in my classroom? CASTLE identifies 5 components of social emotional learning. You, as an educator, can work to make sure you are implementing these components within your classroom, and you'll see these listed here on the screen. The first component is self awareness. Know your strengths and limitations with a well grounded sense of confidence, optimism, and a growth mindset. Self management. Effectively manage stress, control impulses, and motivate yourself to set and achieve goals. Social awareness. Understand the perspectives of others and empathize with them, including those from diverse backgrounds and cultures. Relationship skills. Communicate clearly, listen well, cooperate with others, resist inappropriate social pressure, negotiate conflict constructively, and seek and offer help when needed. Responsible decision making. Make constructive choices about personal behavior and social interactions based on ethical standards, safety, and social norms. So let's first look at self-awareness. Self-awareness is defined as the conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. So it's knowing yourself. I want my students to be aware of who they are. I want them to feel good about themselves. If they feel good about themselves, then it is so much easier for them to pour into others within our classroom, within our school. When I'm modeling self awareness, I also stress that sometimes we have to do hard things. Now, this is a hard concept for most children, especially my classroom, second grade. They have many things that they do not want to try hard to do. They want something to happen immediately, and they do not always want to keep trying. I do spend a lot of my day encouraging my students to keep trying. And I do believe in the times that we're living in that a lot of students have not had to really try hard to accomplish something. And so it's not something that they're used to practicing. And we have to really instill that in them that, you know what, sometimes we just have to do hard things. That's part of life. And just because something is hard does not mean that you stop and give up. You have to keep tackling it. So, something that I like to do with self awareness is just celebrating each child. And this is something that I like to do in the beginning of the school year. This is something I've done with kindergarten, I've done it with second grade, I've done it with third grade. And that's just celebrating who they are. I love to celebrate my students' names. I like to begin the year with an All About Me unit. We love to read I Like Me and Chrysanthemum. Students find out from their families more about their names, and they share with the classroom maybe where their name came from or what's special about their name. I go ahead and tell them my whole name, and they love hearing my whole name, first, middle, and last, and why I have the name that I have. And we work really hard to begin with positivity. The book Chrysanthemum, if you have not read that, that's great for pre-K through third grade. I don't think there's even anything wrong with reading that to a fourth grade class or a higher grade class. It really harps on just being proud of your name and who you are. I Like Me is a fun book that just encourages children to just like who they are, the way they were made, the way they were intended to be. Another thing that I like to do to motivate self awareness is a best part of me activity. And this is something that I do kind of in the spring. I'll be getting ready to do this soon within my new classroom of students. I read The Best Part of Me by Wendell Ewald to the class, and it's a wonderful book. In this book, real children talk about their bodies in pictures and in words. After reading the story, we spend a few minutes thinking about what is the best part of me. We then go to our seats and I set a timer for 10 minutes. I tell my classroom that I want them to write as much as they can about the best part of them. I stress to them that we are not worried about how anything is spelled or how anything looks on the paper. I just want them to write down everything that they feel is the best part of them and why it is their best part. The book in itself is a really great hook for this activity. I always model my own writing while the class is also writing. Once our writing is complete, I share what I wrote about the best part of me. I then let my students take turns sharing what they wrote. And even my shyest student, every year that I've done this, is very excited to share with the classroom what they wrote. I make this a big deal by letting the students stand in a chair. Everyone gets so very quiet and really focuses in on each other. After reading, I let the students make any changes they want to, and I let them add anything else they want to their writing. Every student checks in with me throughout the week, and we edit and then we publish this writing. I also take a picture of whatever their best part of me is, and I like to put that in black and white and then put it on black paper, and we use it as a display. I always get teary eyed when the students are reading their best parts of me out loud, so I always have to explain to the students why Miss Atkins is crying. They are so beautifully written and so very real and so very heartfelt. After we finish up our writing, we put this on display with our pictures. And it's something that I've noticed that our whole school enjoys looking at. I've had teachers walk by look at it. They walk into the classroom with little tears in their eyes because they've read what someone says is the best part of them. And it's just really neat to see how a child describes what the best part of them is and why. And it's just such an innocent answer that they give. The next part that we'll look at is self management. Self management is defined as management of or by oneself, the taking of responsibility for one's own behavior and well being. When students are self managing themselves, they know their own strengths and they know their weaknesses. Once a student knows their strengths and weaknesses, then they can effectively manage stress, emotions, impulses, and motivate themselves to achieve goals. Something I like to remember when I'm thinking about self management with my class is this quote: when educating the minds of our youth, we must not forget to educate their hearts. Um, as teachers, we see and hear a lot of things from our students, and we often know a lot of things that are going on that a child cannot control. And I think we really have to take that into consideration and just remember that part of what we are educating is their hearts. And if that heart is happy, that child is going to have a much better day. If that heart is sad and that child is not knowing how to express to you, what is going on, then they're probably going to have a bad day. When you are teaching self management, make sure you remember that we must always remember to just educate those hearts. I believe that self management is a great way to educate the heart of my students. Something else I recently saw was a quote by Rita Pearson, and I have to remember this for myself. Kids don't learn from people they don't like. I know that there's often teachers that believe that we're not supposed to be a child's friend or we're not supposed to cross a certain line. And I do know that there's a line as a teacher, but I also believe that if my students don't want to come to my classroom and I have not made that a place where they feel safe and they feel happy and they feel secure, then they're not going to learn from me because they're not going to want to be there. So, something that I've always tried as a goal in my classroom is to make learning fun. Now, do I always have the absolute best lessons? No, but I try to make learning fun. I was told early on in my teaching to just have fun. Put on a fun song, put on something where you can get the wiggles out with your classroom and let them see you laugh. Let them see you having fun and let them see that you can have moments within your day where you're letting happiness shine throughout your classroom. Something else that I believe that is really important with self-management is going into I can't yet. I love to intentionally read with my class Giraffes Can't Dance. In this book, the giraffe can't dance like all the other jungle animals, and he's made fun of because of his lack of dancing skills. Gerald is the perfect character to teach students about growth mindset and what we cannot do yet, because we all have something that we can't do yet. In my classroom, I read the book to the class, and then we brainstorm a list of things that the giraffe could not do yet. After we discuss the story, we talk about what we can't do yet. This book leads us into so much conversation about what we can't do yet and what we want to be able to do one day. This then leads us into goal setting. I reread this book many times to my class throughout the school year, especially if I see that someone is having a hard time with a topic or reaching a goal. It's a quick read. It's a great just reminder to your students that it's okay that you can't do something yet, but let's see what we can do so that we can do that one day. Next, let's look at social awareness. Social awareness is the ability to comprehend and appropriately react to both broad problems of society and interpersonal struggles. This means you are socially aware of your environment, what's around you, and you can accurately interpret the emotions of people with whom you interact. This component is about ultimately creating a classroom community. This is what we as educators do at the beginning of the school year and throughout the school year. I begin my year with working hard in my classroom to just make it a happy place, as I've already mentioned. I want my children to feel safe, and I want them to want to be at school. We begin by learning routines and how to treat one another. I must, many times throughout the school day, remind my second graders how to treat one another because honestly, um, I think we all know that we have to do that on a daily basis because somehow our students do forget. Empathy is an extremely important part of teaching these social emotional skills. Children have to learn to empathize. It is natural for a child to think of themselves first. In my classroom, I teach my students to listen with their eyes, listen with their ears, and listen with their heart. We spend a lot of time modeling and discussing things that we can do to empathize with others. And I love this quote here that just says, empathy is seeing with the eyes of another, listening with the ears of another, and feeling with the heart of another. And you'll see an activity that we had just done here where the kids had drawn themselves and then they put big ears and a big heart and big eyes on their picture just to remind themselves that they have to empathize and they have to listen with those eyes, those ears, and those hearts. Something else that we do within our classroom is talk about bucket filling. This is a great book, Have You Filled a Bucket Today? Written by Carol McLeod. And it's just a guide to daily happiness for kids. This is also a book that we revisit many times throughout the school year. When I first use this book, I do a big lesson with bucket filling and bucket dipping. You can find freebies online where you can get this little outline and you can make little paper buckets. You could get real little buckets within your classroom or a big bucket in your classroom where kids can put notes in there to encourage one another. When we did this activity, my classroom just had to think of 3 things that they were going to do to fill someone's bucket. We also do a lot of talking about what it means to be a bucket dipper. And I do hear my class talking about this throughout the school year about bucket filling and bucket dipping. And it is also a great way for some of my, even my sped kids, where they understand that, that's a bucket dipping. Someone dipped inside of me and made me feel yucky on the inside. So this is a really great book to visit. Next, we'll look at relationship skills. Relationship skills is the ability, it is the skills, the tools, knowledge, knowing and understanding to create, communicate, evolve, grow, trust, and maintain a relationship. When you think of teaching relationship skills, think of teaching character education. Think of teaching things like compassion, honesty, caring, fairness, respect, courage. If you do not know the author Maria Dismondy, she has wonderful books that will help you teach these character traits. She has a great website where she puts lots of freebies on there for you to use with her books. One of her books that I love to use within my classroom is Spaghetti in a Hot Dog Bun. And this is a great book for teaching courage. In this book, Lucy knows what she stands for, and she has the courage to make the right choice involving a boy that has been mean to her. This book empowers children to always do the right thing and to be proud of themselves even when they are faced with someone challenging. We intentionally read this book and then we discuss what we want to have the courage to do. We discuss what we want to have the courage to do as a class and what we want to have the courage to do individually. I took this book and did it with my class individually as just the classroom, but then I also had a day where families came into our classroom and we did it with our families. And it was really powerful to just see students with their families talking about courage and talking about things that they wanted to just have the courage to do one day. Um, every family that came wrote on a heart. So that was grandparents, they wrote on hearts, parents, aunts, uncles. They all wrote something on their heart that they wanted to have the courage to do, and they talked about it within their family. It was a really powerful lesson. There were some things that I read that just really struck my heart as wow, I'm so glad that we did this and that my students could see that even big people have things that they want to have the courage to do. Next, we'll look at responsible decision making. Responsible decision is the decision to make choices that are good for you and for others. It is the ability to understand yourself, your actions, how your actions affect others, and what is socially acceptable. Responsible decision making is ultimately what we are teaching every single day in the classroom. This component consists of making constructive choices about personal behavior. It requires students to experience interaction with peers and adults. Something we talk about within my classroom is just smart choices. And a lot of times I'll just tell my class, I'll say, now, is that a smart choice? And that's something that we have within some roles that we have in our classroom, so they understand that well. But, I always say a smart choice means that you thought about it before you made the decision. And so if you just take the time to stop for a minute and think, you're going to know if that's a smart choice or a not so smart choice. Another thing I like to talk about within my classroom with responsible decision making is the ripple effect. I like to express to my class that what we do always affects someone else, and that a lot of times what we do, even if we're not meaning to, it can adversely hurt someone or it can make them happy. And that we just have to remember that what we do is, again, leaving that legacy, leaving those footprints in the sand, or just as water waves move through the ocean, what they're doing is moving throughout others. And it's either doing something for the positive or doing something for the negative.
Alex, I'm listening to this one.
Hold up.
Something that I like to also talk with my classroom about with responsible decision making is something that I just call the number one rule. This is something that I heard at a conference, probably my second year of teaching, and I have no idea who it was that I was even listening to. It was just a teacher that taught kindergarten at a kindergarten reading academy that I went to. And something that she said that she teaches her class is the number one rule, and that they go by this number one rule all of the time. And it's just never hurt anyone on the inside or the outside. With my classroom, I have a big number one up in my classroom, and inside it, it says never hurt anyone on the inside or the outside. We all have a big number one that we color, and we put in a leadership notebook that we keep within our classroom, just to kind of instill and remember that, hey, my number one rule that Miss Adkins expects out of me is to never hurt anyone on the inside or the outside. Kids understand this. Pre-K, I've done it with pre-K, they understand. Third grade, they understand. We talk about this a lot in the beginning of the year. After that, we don't have to talk about it as much, but I do have to remind my class, or I might ask them when something arises, did that hurt them on the inside or the outside? Another great thing to talk about is just that they are in charge of themselves. We are a Leader in Me school, the school that I teach at, and so we spend a lot of time getting to talk about character education and being in charge of ourselves. It goes along with our habit one, where we're being proactive. And I remind my class, you know what? You are in charge of you. You get to make your own decisions. I can't make you do something. You have to remind yourself that you have to make a smart decision and do something that would not hurt someone on the inside or the outside. Some other things I just want to share with you that I feel like are really important with teaching empathy and just making sure that you're teaching those social emotional skills within your classroom is encouraging friendship. You know, last year I had a parent tell me that the only thing that they wanted for their child in third grade was for their child to be invited to a birthday party. That like broke my heart when I heard that. And this was a little boy that just did not have a lot of skills in order to, make friendships. And so I made it my mission that I was going to find him a friend. Um, I believe as teachers that that's something that we need to do. Help your kiddos find a friend. This is another little boy that was in my classroom last year that had come to a new school, and he did not have any friends. He was really sad about being in our class. He made this friend, and this is a picture that I just took this week of them as they are best of friends. And that was something that I did have to encourage. I had to encourage the new student to not be scared to make a new friend. The other little boy, he was very willing to be a friend, but that's something that maybe we just don't always take the time to do. But I encourage you to encourage friendship within your classroom with your students. Sometimes if they just have one person that they feel like is their friend, it makes them feel better about themselves. The other thing I would encourage for spreading empathy is spreading kindness everywhere. This year, 2 teachers and myself started something new within our school called a kindness club. And so we meet with 2nd and 3rd graders once a month. We meet with 4th and 5th graders once a month. And we are trying to just instill in these students that they've got to make that ripple effect throughout our whole school, and that when they see things that are unkind, we're trying to give them tools so that they can show others a kind way to respond instead of an unkind way to respond. So I would just encourage you to find a way to impact your classroom, find a way to impact your school, find a way to impact your community, your town, because all of those things, when you are impacting those things with empathy and with love, we really are impacting the whole world. And we just have to remember that we have a special gift given to us every day of helping to spread that love and kindness within the ones that we get to be in a room with all day long. So anyway, thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening on nurturing empathy within the classroom.
Great job, Tracy. That was amazing. I am extremely inspired currently because I know, and I'm sure we all know, how important this is and how sometimes it can unfortunately get put behind. Being in library, I have them for 40 minutes. So taking that time sometimes is hard because I want to get these things done, but it is so important. In fact, I learned something about one of my students today just because I took the time to talk to him. So we've started implementing a chill day is what I sort of call it, where we're just not really doing anything that's new or that requires a lot of me, that I can just sort of learn and grow with them. And I'm excited about implementing some of the other things that you have taught today. So thank you so much. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. We'll stay on. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And once again, I want to thank Tracy and everyone who stayed with us tonight. And I hope everyone has a great night.
Yes.